Welcome to the second part of the DTOcean database installation tutorial. In the first part of this tutorial, we downloaded all the files you needed and installed the PostgreSQL database management software, including the PostGIS spatial extensions. And there should be a link to this video, at least in the video description below, and there may be one on the screen as well. In this second part, we are going to restore the DTOcean database and maybe the database template. We're going to set up the necessary users to access that database, and we're going to test it in the DTOcean software. So I'm going to be following the instructions that come with the downloaded file, and you can see these where you download this zip file from in part 1. And when you open it up, you'll see a couple of backup files for databases and a README here. And if we open up this README, basically I'm going to be following this guide through from this point here. So part A, we're going to start here. So if you want to just read this and do it yourself, then please be my guest. Otherwise, stick with me. So, following that set of instructions, the first thing we need to do is boot up pgadmin. So we go to our Windows Start menu, we find PostgreSQL and pgadmin4, and we click. pgadmin will open in your default browser. And to open our database server, we try and expand this PostgreSQL 10 branch here, and it will ask us for a password, and we set the password in the first part to Postgres, the same name as the user. That's okay if this is a database that is local, that's on your local machine, but if that's accessible by the internet, then you should choose a stronger admin password. Okay, and you can see here it's opened up and the default Postgres database is there, but no others. So the first task to do here is to create a DTOcean user. So what we do here is we expand the login group roles section. You can see there's only one user at the moment, which is Postgres. And we want to right click on login group roles, create a new login group role, and we're going to call this one DTOcean _ user. Now we're going to go to the definition tab, and we're going to add a password, and I'm just going to add a really simple password, but you can choose whatever password you like. Then we're going to go to the privileges tab, and we're going to switch this can login to yes, and that allows this user to connect to the database. And then we're finished, so we click save. And as you can see, there's our user there. So the next job is to restore the database. So what we do here is we go to databases, we right click and we go to create and then left click on database. And we're going to call this one, this is going to be the main examples database. So we're going to call it DTOcean _ examples. We're going to change the user to the user we just created, so DTOcean _ user. Then we're going to go to the definition tab, and we're going to choose template 0 from the templates. And we're going to choose PG default for the table space. And we're finished now, so we click save. Okay, and there's our database. This is empty and unstructured, but we need to add some extensions to it before we restore the backup. So the next job is to right-click on extensions, and again go to Create, Extension, left-click. And this is a good test to see if PostGIS has been installed. So actually, let's look for PostGIS, just type it in this box here and select it below, click Save. And then we need one more extension, which is fuzzy string match. So FU_Z, there it is. Left click and save. Now our extensions are set up. And then now we're ready to restore the database. So what we do here is we're just going to see, this is on the desktop, I think. So we know where these are. We're going to go to the PG admin, again, tree, and right click on DTOcean examples, and we're going to click restore. Left click restore. Format custom, that's fine. We're going to find our file name. So again, we're on the desktop. Okay, so that is going to be C drive, users. This account is called admin, desktop, and DTOcean databases. And we're going to actually use the DTOcean_examples.backup. And you see this is the much larger file. Select. And we're going to restore this with our user that we created, DTOcean_user. And then on restore options, this is important. In the do not save section, you want to make sure that owner and privileges are both switched to yes. And this just makes sure that any owner or privilege information in the backup doesn't affect the user that you've created. That all permissions given to the user you created. And when that's done, you can just click restore, just check the role name again. Yes and yes, click restore. And then the restore process will start. This can take a little while, a couple of minutes maybe. If it fails immediately, then probably it hasn't worked. It may not say it was successful. Sometimes there are a few conflicts with the extensions between the backup and the database that you set up. So it is possible that there are no that even though it's been successful, it hasn't. It says it hasn't worked. So I might just pause the video, depending on how much time this takes, and show you the results when it's done. Okay, so it's finished. It's taken a good long time, nearly 3 minutes, but it says failed exit code 1. If we click on the more details button, you'll see that it says errors ignored on restore 4. If you've got 4 errors here, then almost certainly it has been successful. If this is more like 20 or 30, then you've probably got a problem. But what you should probably do is follow the section E of the instructions and check whether it's been successful before you decide, okay, I'm going to delete and start again. So I would say this has worked. Close that. Now, to check whether it's worked, we want to refresh the DTOcean examples tree. So we right click there and click refresh. And then we're going to open the schemas branch, and we should see these 3 schemas, 4 schemas, 3 of which are different from the default. So if we open the Postgres tree here, you'll see there's only one, which is public. And here we have 4 schemas: filter, project, public, and reference. Project and reference are where the data is stored and where you would update data if you wanted to. Filter is used for filtering the that data. It has a few stored procedures, as they're called, to pull data from the project schema and recreate those tables in the filter schema, depending on your needs. So yeah, this is almost certainly worked. If you want, you can open, say, the project schema, open the tables, and we could look at the device table, for instance. So if you right-click there and do View, Edit Data, All Rows, you'll get a view of the data there, and you can see there's two devices, which is RM3 and the example title device. So close that now. So it can be useful to repeat this process for the second database backup in the zip file, which is the template database. And that template database is useful for creating basically blank copies of your database, which allow you to make your own database rather than building on the DTOcean examples database. So if you go through this process again quickly, we'll repeat it. So create database, DTOcean underscore template. It doesn't matter so much who the owner is here, but we'll just do the same job. DTOcean user, definitions, again, template 0. And as you can see here, you could use DTOcean examples as a template, and that's the idea of the template database, is you would select that here if you were creating new databases. So it would just make a copy of the template, basically. We're going to use template 0, table spaces, PG default, and we're okay there, so save. We'll open this one up, and similarly, you have to add the extensions again. So we'll do fuzzy string match first here. Save, and then the second one, which is PostGIS. There we go. We don't have to recreate the user, we only make the user once. And then we go right click on the database name and again restore, and we can find our file. It's already in that folder, which is useful. DTOcean template, select, choose our user again, restore options, same again, do not save owner or privilege, and click restore. And this one will be much faster because there's not as much data here. Again, we've got this failed exit code 1. Just check what it said. Again, 4 errors, so almost certainly this has been successful. We'll refresh it. And there we see the schemas are there. I'm opening the reference data because some of the reference data is certainly here. The top level data is available, but the reference data is not. So where can we look for data? So if we look for things called type, so component type will certainly have data in it. So again, if we right click, view, edit all rows, you'll see the component types are stored here. So although there's no data, sort of the structural parts are intact. Okay, so you have the template ready, you have the example, the full example database ready. So now we just need to test that you can connect from DTOcean. So the way we do this is we just close PG admin now. Start DTOcean. There's an assumption that DTOcean 2 is already installed. So we'll just kick it off onto the DTOcean 64-bit folder. Click DTOcean. Wait for it to boot. Okay, so DTOcean window is opened, and to test if we get a database, we create a new project. We'll select a device type. Say we're going to have a wave floating device. And then we go to the select database dialog, and we choose our local database. And then this is our database name as we expected, DTOcean examples. This is our user. If we use a different name, you need to change this. Localhost is assuming you're using the database installed on the machine that you're running DTOcean from, and you enter the password that you created with the user. Click apply. Okay, and you see your database has come up, local modified. You can save this password if you want, but note it is saved in plain text, so be careful that if you're worried about security, that's not a thing to do. You can just enter it each time you need to connect. Now you can close this, and then click Initiate Pipeline, and that will communicate with the database. Fine. Okay, so you can see here that we have a choice of sites, Eureka, California, an example title site, and a choice of devices, RM3, because it's the only floating wave device in the database. And so that confirms the database has been set up correctly. If this hasn't worked at some point, start pgadmin again, or if you've left it open. If you have any problems, the only real way to go is to delete your database and start again. So, for instance, if it hasn't worked with DTOcean examples, right click, left click, delete drop, sure you want to drop database, DTOcean examples, and click OK, and repeat the process from part C in the instructions. So you don't need to set up the user, but you will need to set up the database again and the extensions and go through the restore process until you manage to see the data in there and get a successful connection through DTOcean. So I hope that found that useful. Installing a database is a bit of a complicated process, so hopefully this makes it the steps you have to go through a little bit more transparent. And yeah, I hope you enjoy DTOcean.